Forgotten planet, forbidden war. The stars outside the ship window looked peaceful. But something about this part of space felt wrong. The air inside the small scout ship was cold and tense. Reed sat in the pilot's seat, eyes locked on the glowing, red warning on his screen. Restricted sector, level Omega. Do not enter. Great, he muttered. Of all the places to drop out of hyperspace. The ship had been damaged in a storm near a black hole. It lost control, blinked through 2 wormholes and crashed out here, in the middle of nowhere. Reed was a former soldier, now just a scout pilot for small missions. Nothing dangerous, just maps, scans, and reports. He wasn't trained for war anymore. He definitely wasn't ready for what came next. A soft alarm beeped. Energy surge, he whispered, frowning. His ship's sensors picked up something strange, a huge energy spike coming from a nearby planet. It wasn't a natural signal. It was too sharp, too focused. It looked like a weapon. Before he could act, the ship shook violently. A beam of light shot through space. It struck his ship dead center. Metal screamed, the walls twisted. Sparks flew everywhere. Reed tried to scream, but everything went black. He woke up in pain. His body felt heavy, but he was alive. His vision was blurry, and a strange humming sound filled his ears. He wasn't in a ship anymore. He was on a table, metal, cold, bright lights above him. Shadows moved around. He tried to sit up, but something pressed him down. "Do not move," said a voice. It was not human. Reed turned his head slightly and saw them. Tall, thin, armored. 2 creatures with long arms and glowing eyes. They looked almost insect-like, but moved with a strange grace. They spoke in their language, clicking and humming, but then one of them switched to Galactic Common. "You are human," it said. "That is unexpected." Reed coughed. "What's going on? Where am I?" They didn't answer. Instead, they stared at him, scanned him, watched him like he was something rare, something dangerous. "You should be dead," one of them said. "That weapon was designed to erase matter." "Erase matter?" Reed asked, eyes wide. "You mean destroy it completely?" The alien nodded slowly. "Yet you survived." They didn't kill him. They didn't free him either. For days they studied him. They asked questions, tested his blood, ran scans on his mind. Reed learned their name, the Zareth, one of the 2 great armies locked in a war that had lasted over 900 years. The war was so long that even the generals didn't remember why it started. "Your kind is not part of this," one of the scientists told him. "This is not your war." "I didn't come here on purpose," Reed said. "It was an accident." "Perhaps," the alien said coldly, "or perhaps fate." They gave Reed basic food, a thin mat to sleep on, and nothing else. The air was dry. The lights never dimmed. And every day new questions came. But they weren't the only ones watching him. Soldiers, technicians, even young trainees came to see the human. They stared through glass walls, whispering. Some pointed. Some looked afraid. One night, Reed overheard 2 guards talking in their own language. They didn't know he understood some of it. "He should have died," one said. "I heard he absorbed the beam," said the other. "Impossible." "Maybe not. Maybe the humans are more than they seem." The next morning, things changed. The commander of the base came to see him. She was tall with dark silver armor and piercing green eyes. Her name was Commander Siren. "You will fight," she said. Reed raised an eyebrow. "Fight? Fight what?" "A test. A simple one," she replied. "Prove your strength, prove your worth," he laughed. "You think I'm a soldier?" "You are," she said. "Your record is clear. Earth Unit, 4th Division. Front lines during the Ursha raids." Reed's smile faded. He hadn't talked about the Ursha War in years. How did they know? Before he could say more, they gave him a strange suit, light, strong, and filled with wires. They gave him a small weapon, sharp and hot to the touch. Not a gun, not a blade. Something in between. They dropped him into a practice arena. a circle of stone under an open sky. Alien soldiers stood watching. Above them, strange ships hovered, their lights blinking. Reed stood alone. Across from him, a beast stepped forward, huge, armored, a war titan. It roared and slammed the ground. Reed took a deep breath. "This is insane," he whispered, but something deep inside him, a fire he thought was gone, started to burn again. 5 minutes later, the war titan lay broken, and Reed, the human, who wasn't meant to be here, stood covered in dust, breathing hard but alive. The crowd said nothing. They just stared and whispered. "What is he?" one voice asked. Reed looked up at the silent watchers, eyes cold. "I'm just a man," he said. But already fear had started to spread, not because of what he was, but because of what he might become. Experiments and whispers. The cell was quiet now. Too quiet. Reed sat on the floor with his back against the cold wall, staring at the faint glow in the ceiling. His body ached, his hands were scratched, and his breathing was slow. He hadn't expected to survive that fight. He hadn't expected to win. And yet, he did. Outside the cell, footsteps echoed again. Slower this time. Not like the marching, guards, no boots, just soft steps. Almost careful. Cautious. The door slid open without a sound. A new figure stepped inside. Not a soldier, not a scientist. This one wore dark blue robes and a strange mask with tiny blinking lights across it. Reed could feel something strange in the air, like a hum pressing against his chest. The figure carried no weapon, but something about them felt more dangerous than anyone he had met so far. "You are different," the figure said, voice calm and strange, like it came from far away. "That's what they all keep saying." Reed replied, not bothering to stand. The masked figure walked in a circle around him, slow and curious. "You fought the war titan. You walked out unharmed. You broke its armor without power tech. You used only instinct." "I used panic," Reed muttered. The figure paused, but it worked, and that frightens them. Reed finally looked up. "Then why are you here?" "I study things that should not exist," the figure answered. "And right now, that's you." They began more tests. But this time, not just physical, they showed him strange objects, glowing cubes that pulsed when he touched them, alien texts that twisted and reshaped themselves under his gaze. One test involved standing in a chamber full of light and being asked to think of home. When he did, the walls turned into images of Earth, not pictures, memories. His mother's kitchen, his old bunk at base camp, even the dog he lost when he was 12. The aliens watched, silently, taking notes. Some leaned closer, others stepped back. Word spread fast. The whispers grew louder in the halls. The human cannot be scanned. His thoughts shaped the tech. He walked through a matter field and came out whole. Reed wasn't sure what was true anymore. His body felt different, stronger. His thoughts came faster. Even wounds healed quicker than before. He asked for answers, but the scientists only gave him more riddles. One night, as he slept, he felt a sudden jolt in his chest, like something woke up inside him. He gasped. His eyes shot open, and for a moment, he could see the energy flowing through the walls. As if the world had peeled itself open for a second, they moved him to a higher-level chamber after that. More guards, more cameras, less freedom. They said it was for protection, but Reed could feel it. The fear. Not just from the Xerath scientists, but from their soldiers too. He overheard a group whispering outside his door. "We made a mistake," one said. "This thing, it's not a warrior, it's something else." "The other side knows now," another replied. "They're sending a seeker to kill him, to claim him." Reed closed his eyes, heart racing. He had gone from lost pilot to prisoner. Now he was something worse. Something every side wanted. They gave him a choice the next morning. Commander Siren herself came again, This time her armor was damaged, a crack along the shoulder. Her voice had lost some of its strength. "We're losing ground," she said. "Our enemy has summoned their seeker, a weapon we cannot face alone." Reed watched her carefully. "And you want me to fight it?" She hesitated. "We don't know what you are, Reed. But whatever it is, the seeker will test it." Laughed bitterly. "Funny. Yesterday I was just a test subject. Now you want me to save you." "Not save," she said softly. "Survive. If you can survive again, they might fear you." He stood slowly. His body no longer felt broken. It felt like it was waking up. "Learning." "Fine," he said. "But after this, I want answers." Commander Siren gave a nod. "If you live, you will get more than answers." They flew him out at dawn. The sky above the battlefield was cracked with purple clouds and flashes of red light. Alien machines hovered in the air, shaped like spinning bones. Energy fields lit the sky in crisscrossing lines. Reed could feel every vibration in his chest. The war was real, and it was far bigger than he had imagined. The ship dropped him, near a scorched plain. The ground was black glass. Broken armor lay scattered everywhere. This place had seen hundreds of battles, and standing in the center of it all was the Seeker. It didn't look alive, a massive being twice the size of the War Titan. Thin limbs, no eyes, just a smooth mask and long arms crackling with energy. It didn't move until Reed stepped forward. Then it turned its head and spoke, in perfect English. "You are not supposed to exist," Reed swallowed. "Yeah? Tell that to your dead friends." The Seeker raised a hand. The sky dimmed, and Reed, for the first time, felt something deep in his bones. Not fear. Something older, something waiting to be awakened. And he didn't back down. The impossible survivor, the first blast should have torn his body apart. The Seeker didn't waste time. It lifted its arm and released a wave of raw, violet energy that cracked the ground like a shattered mirror. The force hit Reed full in the chest, and for a split second he saw his death. But then, nothing. He stood still, unharmed. The energy licked around him like wind around stone. His skin glowed for a moment. Then it stopped. The dust settled, and the battlefield fell silent. High above, alien observers gasped. Xerath commanders stared from their ships. Even their enemies, the Talshar, the rival species, watched in stunned silence. No one had ever stood against the Seeker's first strike. No one had ever survived. But Reed wasn't just alive. He looked stronger. "That's impossible," one Talshar captain said, watching from a hovering spire. "His body absorbed the blast," whispered a Xerath analyst nearby. "We saw it. The energy curve bent around him like he was coded to resist it." "Coded?" the captain growled. "He's not a weapon, he's a mammal." But the analysts shook their head. Maybe not just a mammal anymore. On the battlefield, Reed took a deep breath. The Seeker tilted its head, curious now. "Your kind is not meant to exist in this war," it said. "You are too young, too unshaped. Yet here you are, standing." "Yeah," Reed muttered, brushing dust from his shoulder. "And now I'm annoyed." He didn't have a real weapon, just a shard of metal from the War Titan he'd destroyed before. It hummed faintly, with unstable energy. Reed gripped it tighter, not sure what it could do but knowing he'd need it. The Seeker charged. Reed dodged left, barely avoiding a strike that melted the glass-like earth. He rolled, slid under the Seeker's legs, and swung the shard upward. It cut deep, not into flesh but into something harder than stone, softer than steel. The Seeker paused, stunned. The shard worked. Reed didn't think. He moved. He fought like someone with nothing to lose. Wild, fast, unpredictable. He dodged blasts, rolled between strikes, and stabbed when no one expected it. The shard screamed each time it struck the Seeker's armor, sending pulses through Reed's arm. He grunted but kept swinging. Something shifted inside him. His vision sharpened. He could see the movements a second before they happened. He stepped left, just as a spear of light grazed past his ribs. He ducked, just as a shockwave exploded. Above his head, his mind worked faster than he could process. Instincts replaced fear. And then, he landed the final strike. Not a killing blow, just a twist of the shard into the Seeker's shoulder, deep enough to send it reeling backward. The Seeker let out a low electronic howl and stumbled. It didn't fall, but it didn't chase him again. Instead, it turned and vanished in a burst of black light. Reed fell to one knee, breathing hard. His hands shook. Blood trickled from his forehead. But he was still alive. Above every ship, Seraph and Tal Shar alike, floated in stunned silence. Then the messages began, and every leader, on both sides of the war, spoke the same word. Human. They didn't take him back to a cell. They brought him to the inner chambers. This time, no cuffs, no guards. Just quiet hallways filled with long stares and uncertain eyes. Commander Siren met him in a private chamber lit by soft blue light. Her posture was different now, no longer cold and sharp. She looked tired, cautious. "You survived the Seeker," she said softly. "Yeah," Reed answered. "It wasn't easy. You shouldn't have survived at all." He didn't reply. Instead, he looked at the screen behind her. It showed the battlefield, replaying the fight in slow motion. And then something else. Frames that paused on glowing patterns that had appeared on Reed's skin during the battle. Symbols. Shapes. "What is that?" he asked. "We don't know," Siren whispered. "It's not our language." But the computer matched one of the shapes to a ruined site deep below the surface of this planet. So what? So the ruins are older than our war, older than our species, and the door to them opened when we showed it your image. Hours later, they flew down into the broken lands, black sand dunes, craters filled with silent machines. Deep below the surface, hidden under layers of forgotten war, was a massive vault door. It had no key, no lock, just a flat surface and a glowing outline shaped like a hand. Reed stepped forward. Siren watched him. We scanned the panel. It responds to heat, motion, thought. But nothing worked. Reed didn't speak. He raised his hand and placed it on the outline. The door opened. No code, no sound, just light. And somewhere deep inside, the old system spoke a word in ancient, static-filled English. "Welcome home." Reed turned slowly toward the others. Siren stepped back, eyes wide. "What does this mean?" she asked. Reed looked at the glowing hallway stretching into the darkness. "It means," he said quietly, "we've been here before." The war wasn't just between alien species anymore. It had just become something far greater. And humanity wasn't just an accident in this fight. They were part of its beginning. Human fingerprints on alien ruin, the tunnel walls pulsed with faint blue light. Old light. Ancient light. Reed walked slowly, his fingers brushing the smooth surface of the stone-like walls. They were warm, not like metal, not like rock. Almost like skin. The silence around him was heavy, but not empty. It felt like something was watching, listening. Not with eyes, not with ears, but with memory. Commander Siren followed 3 steps behind. Her armor was quiet now, her movements less rigid. There were no guards, no drones. Just her. And him. "We shouldn't be here," she whispered. "This place, it's not built for us." Reed nodded. "Maybe not, but it opened for me." They reached a wide chamber at the end of the tunnel. The floor lit up as he stepped forward. A circular platform rose from the ground, and symbols appeared in the air above it. Shapes, lines, and words written in something close to English, but twisted, broken by time. Siren raised her arm to record, but her device short-circuited the second it turned on. "Nothing works in here," she muttered. Reed said nothing. He stepped onto the platform. The chamber responded. A soft hum filled the air. Holograms flickered around him. Stars, systems, planets. Then, images. Not just pictures. Memories. He saw humans, old humans, not from Earth, not anymore. They were dressed in strange suits, speaking in soft voices. He couldn't hear them clearly, but the expressions were calm. They were builders, not soldiers. They had come to this world not to conquer, but to guide. They had arrived long before the Zareth or the Talshar had even learned to walk upright. The holograms shifted. Reed saw machines being handed to strange, primitive creatures, early forms of the current alien species. He saw glowing seeds planted into the ground. He saw war maps, training arenas, simulations. It was a project, a plan. Earth humans, or something close to them, had come here thousands of years ago, and they had left more than just footprints. They had left designs for war. Siren stepped forward, eyes wide. What? What is this? Reed didn't answer. The next image showed two familiar faces, an early Zareth and an early Talshar, shaking hands, and behind them, a human. Smiling. It all made sense now. This war wasn't an accident, Reed said softly. It was built. Siren stared at him, her voice barely above a whisper. You mean our war? Your people caused it? Maybe not caused, he said. But they were here, they interfered, and when they left, the ones they trained stayed behind. The chamber darkened. A final image appeared, a tall figure standing in the middle of a battlefield, glowing with the same strange symbols that had appeared on Reed's body. He stepped closer. The face was blurred, but the stance, the posture, it looked just like him. The vault shook slightly. Dust fell from above. Siren tensed. What was that? Reed turned. Someone knows we're here. She touched her earpiece. No signal. Another shake. Then a sound. Deep. Mechanical. Far above them, something massive was descending into the valley. They rushed back through the tunnels. As they reached the surface, the sky had already darkened. A Talshar dreadnought hovered above, casting a wide shadow across the land. Reed narrowed his eyes. They followed us. Siren drew her weapon. They want the vault. No, Reed said. They want what came out of it. The Talshar ship sent down a message. Not words, just an image. Reed, standing in front of the vault door, hand outstretched. And below the image, one line in blinking red text, surrender the anomaly. Reed's breath slowed. He looked at the land around them, broken by centuries of war, burned by weapons too complex to name. And now both alien races were starting to realize something none of them wanted to believe. This war wasn't theirs anymore. It belonged to whoever understood what was inside the ruins. And right now, that meant him. Siren glanced at him. They will kill you. Maybe, Reed said. But maybe they're too scared to try. He stepped forward, raising both hands. I'm not your enemy, he shouted toward the ship. But I'm not your tool either. The dreadnought's lights grew brighter. Reed smiled. Come down then, see what happens. They didn't shoot. Not yet. Instead, a small group descended in a transport pod, Talshar warriors in heavy armor, followed by a tall figure in crimson robes. This one wasn't just a soldier. Reed could feel the weight of command in his presence. The alien approached and removed his helmet. His face was older than Reed expected, weathered with black eyes and long scars. He studied Reed with interest. You touched the vault, he said. You were not meant to. Neither. Were you? Reed replied. The alien nodded slowly. Perhaps, but we understand war. We built ourselves into it. Reed shook his head. No, someone else built you for it, and you never questioned it. The alien's eyes narrowed. And you would have us stop? Reed looked at the sky. I'm saying this war was designed to keep you distracted. Fighting, forever. If you keep going, you'll never know what you were before. The alien said nothing, then turned to his guards. Stand down, he ordered. Siren stepped beside Reed, stunned. What are you doing? Ending the war, the Talshar leader said. Or at least, pausing it. We need answers now, and he's the only one with a key. Reed looked down at his hands, still glowing faintly. I don't want to fight, he said, but if I have to, I will. For the first time in centuries, both sides of the war stopped, not because of a weapon, not because of peace treaties, but because one human opened a door and made them question everything they thought they knew. The weapon they feared, the air around Reed had changed. It wasn't just the glow under his skin anymore. It was the way the ground seemed to quiet when he walked. The way old machines buried and forgotten by time, lit up as he passed them. And the way both sides of the war now watched him with equal parts awe and dread. A week had passed since he opened the vault. Since both the Zareth and the Talshar agreed to a temporary ceasefire, they claimed it was to understand the ruin, to study the human anomaly. But Reed knew better. They were afraid, not of what he did, but of what he could do next. Inside the base they'd built near the ruins, Reed sat alone in a white room surrounded by half-active alien tech. Strange spheres floated quietly above his head, recording his every move. His hands rested on a stone table etched with unreadable symbols. Whenever he placed his palms flat, the table responded, glowing brighter, rearranging its surface, humming with something deep and ancient. A dozen scientists had tried to copy the effect. None succeeded. They couldn't even touch the table without it powering down completely. Only Reed could make it breathe. He didn't understand it either, but he was beginning to feel something in his chest, something growing louder every time he used the old tech. A rhythm, a pulse, like something was waking up inside him. Commander Seren entered without a word. She placed a small data cube on the table. It opened into a projection, a battlefield, recent, scattered ships, black smoke, and something new at the center, a crater, carved perfectly into the shape of a spiral. Another vault, she said. Reed looked at her. You think I can open it? No, she replied. I know you can. He nodded slowly. And if I do? Seren hesitated. Then the war ends. He raised an eyebrow. Just like that? Not with peace, she said quietly. With fear. The next day they took him to the site. It wasn't like the last vault. This one was deeper, buried under a broken mountain once used as a Talshar command post. The enemy had fled the region after discovering it, leaving behind wreckage, weapons, and something worse. Messages scribbled in a panic. It hears our thoughts. It's not dead. We were not meant to see this. As Reed stepped toward the vault's surface, the spiral lines began to glow on their own. He didn't touch anything. The door simply opened, like it had been waiting for him. Inside, it was colder than the first. The halls were lined with glass behind which floated broken armor, humanoid but not from any known race. The designs were beautiful, ancient, powerful. Each suit bore the mark of a circle with 3 lines running through it, the same mark that now burned faintly on Reed's back. He walked in silence until he reached a central room, much like the last one. A control platform sat in the middle. This time, it didn't project stars or history. This time, it spoke. Not in words, but in thought. The voice echoed in Reed's mind like thunder in a cave. You are the final design. His breath caught in his throat. You are not weapon. You are balance. The air thickened. Machines on the walls turned toward him. They didn't have eyes, but they saw. They were given war. You were given choice. Reed stumbled back, his heart racing. What does that mean? A final pulse shook the room. It means this war ends when you choose to end it. And then the platform lit up, revealing a device unlike anything he'd seen before. Not a weapon, not a shield. A controller, not for machines, for intention. Outside, Seren and the Talshar leader waited tensely, watching from a distance. The mountain had gone silent since Reed entered. No messages. No light. Then suddenly, without warning, every ship's system shut down. Zirith, Talshar, even the orbiting dreadnoughts. Weapons powered off. Engines froze mid-spin. Communications dropped. A full battlefield blackout. And in the silence, only one thing moved. Reed. He walked out alone, the device hovering behind him like a silent shadow. The leaders rushed to meet him. "What did you do?" the Talshar commander asked. "I turned it off," Reed replied. "Turned what off?" Siren pressed. "The war," he said. They stared at him, not understanding. So he raised the device and sent out a low signal. And in that moment, all weapons within 1,000 miles disarmed themselves. Rifles uncharged. Cannons folded shut. Missiles refused to launch. Even the soldiers' personal tech blinked and failed. Panic swept the camps. And in its place, silence. The device wasn't a weapon, it was a key. Not to destroy, but to disable. A final fail-safe built into the vaults, made by ancient humans who had learned long ago that if you teach war, you must also leave behind a way to end it. Reed turned to the alien leaders, both stunned and pale. "This isn't your war," he said. "It never was. It was a test, or maybe a mistake. But either way, it's over if you let it be." "And if we don't?" the Talshar asked. Reed's eyes darkened. "Then I press it again, and next time it'll shut down every system you've ever built. Every ship, every planet-wide weapon grid, everything." He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just stood there. And for the first time in galactic history, the war paused. Not because someone won, but because no one could fight back. Fear across the stars, no battle had ever ended like this. There were no flags, no victory songs, no speeches. Just silence. A silence so deep that even the war machines once known to hum across the stars now sat useless, powerless, waiting. And at the center of it all was one man. Reed. He didn't feel like a hero, didn't feel like a conqueror. He felt tired, like his bones carried not just the weight of his own body, but the history of something much older, something heavier. Every alien eye across both armies looked at him not with hatred, not even respect, but with caution. He wasn't one of them. He wasn't supposed to be here, and yet no one could deny it now. He had changed everything. In the following days, messages were sent across dozens of systems. Data packets marked with emergency codes, top-level broadcasts. Every commander, from the Talshar dreadnoughts to the deep Zirith citadels, received the same 3 lines. Human anomaly has disabled Battlefront Echo. Ancient tech responds only to him. Advise full re-evaluation of enemy status. Humanity. Panic rippled through alien high councils. Some thought he was a weapon sent from Earth. Others believed he was a god made flesh. But none could agree on one thing. What should they do now? Reed wasn't hiding. He stayed near the second vault, living inside a structure that once housed Talshar weapon engineers. It was strange, sleeping in a place meant to build death. But the walls were quiet now. The machines wouldn't even hum when he passed. He walked through their rooms barefoot, touched the walls like they were alive. The device he had found still hovered behind him at all times, silent, pulsing faintly, almost like it had a heartbeat. Sometimes at night, it spoke to him again, not in words, in feelings, sometimes grief, sometimes guilt, sometimes memory. The ancient humans who made this had hoped their gift would bring protection. Instead, it brought war. Commander Siren visited often. She never came with guards anymore. No threats, no warnings. She brought food, information, sometimes just silence. "They don't know what to do with you," she said one evening, standing by the wide observation window. Reed sat across from her, arms crossed, eyes half closed. "They want to kill me?" "Some," she admitted. "Others want to worship you." He chuckled softly. "Always the extremes." She looked at him, You made them fear you. He met her gaze. I didn't mean to. But you did. She walked closer, then sat beside him. They fear you not because of your strength, she said slowly. They fear that you made them feel weak, like children holding stolen weapons. He didn't reply, because deep down he knew she was right. A broadcast came the next day, not from the Zareth, not from the Tal Shar, but from a neutral observer race known as the Narun, beings of pure thought who lived in the deep spaces between star systems. They never spoke unless history itself was changing. Their message was brief. The human is to be studied, not feared, not harmed. To do so would be to end the cycle too early. We are watching. The message was seen by over 500 species, and overnight, the legend grew. On a backwater moon, children started carving symbols of Reed's glowing mark into stone. On trading stations, stories began to spread, exaggerated, impossible, but powerful. One tale claimed he turned entire ships into mist just by thinking. Another said he could speak to machines in his sleep. Some aliens feared his name. Others whispered it in hope. Some called him the breaker of cycles. Others called him the last builder. But one name kept spreading faster than the rest. The balance. Still, Reed remained quiet. He didn't want a title, he didn't want worship, he just wanted answers. Why had humanity been here before? Why did their ancient scientists create weapons of thought and emotion? Why did they vanish? Leaving behind vaults full of silence and danger, he spent hours walking the halls of the second vault. Each step, deeper, made his heart beat slower, heavier. And then, in a room beneath the core, he found it, a preserved recording. An old human scientist standing in front of a dying planet. Her voice crackled. We tried to guide them. We gave too much. Too fast. They weren't ready. And neither were we. Reed watched, breath still. So, we locked it all away, buried our tools, shut down the network. And if this message plays, she looked directly at the screen, it means someone found us. Maybe you. If you are human, be careful. The tools you find aren't just weapons. They're reflections of your mind, your choices. And if you aren't human, her voice trembled. Run. Reed stood still for a long time. It wasn't about power. It was about responsibility. Everything he had done was part of something unfinished, a project left behind. And now every species in the galaxy was watching him, waiting for his next step. Because deep down, they all feared the same truth. This war hadn't ended yet. Not really, because the war was never just between the Zareth and the Tal Shar. It was between who they had become and what Reed might help them become next. He stepped out of the vault and looked to the stars. It's time, he whispered. We weren't meant for this war. We ended it. The sky above the scorched valley was clear for the first time in generations. No smoke, no dreadnought shadows, no shrieking weapons splitting the clouds. Just silence and blue light from the distant star warming a battlefield that for once didn't echo with death. But the silence didn't mean peace. Not yet. It meant tension, waiting, watching, because everyone knew something was about to happen. And once again, all eyes were on a single human. Reed stood at the edge of the valley overlooking a canyon carved not by rivers, but by the weight of centuries-long war. Behind him, the ancient vault pulsed softly, as if breathing through stone. And floating, beside him, the thought control device humming faintly with unreadable power. Messages from across the galaxy pinged around him. Some begged for alliance, others threatened death. And one from a hidden Tal Shar war council simply said, "We will retake the balance by force." Reed didn't respond. He just kept looking at the sky, until a new shadow appeared. They came at sunrise. Hundreds of ships. Sharp, sleek, angry. Not Tal Shar, not Zareth, but a rogue faction, war scavengers who'd broken off from both empires, refusing the ceasefire. They believed peace was weakness. They believed fear kept the stars spinning, and they believed that killing the human would return things to normal. But normal was dead. Reed turned to Commander Siren, standing nearby with a few loyal soldiers. "They're coming in fast," she said, scanning the skies. "And they're not here to talk." "Then we don't talk," he replied softly. She stared at him. "You don't have an army." "I don't need one," he said. "Not this time." The first wave of enemy fighters descended like a swarm. They fired before their ships even reached the atmosphere. Energy lances, pulse cannons, planet breakers. But none of it landed, because as the blasts neared the surface, the device behind Reed pulsed once, and space bent. Every weapon stopped mid-air, frozen in a web of invisible threads. Then, in silence, they reversed, curved, spun, and fired back. Within seconds, half the fleet tore itself apart without a single human raising a weapon. Siren stepped back in shock. "What did you just do?" Reed didn't answer at first. He walked forward into the blast zone where dust still hovered like fog. "This thing doesn't fire weapons," he said. "It reflects intent." She blinked. "Intent?" "They came to destroy," he said, voice low. "So their destruction was returned to them." "That's not a weapon," she breathed. "That's judgment." But the second wave didn't. More ships rained down, this time manned by beings who'd removed fear from their DNA. Zealots, born to fight. They reached the ground. Reed didn't move. He didn't run. He just raised his hand. Not in anger, but in stillness. The device flared again. A pulse spread through the ground, and this time, it spoke. Not in words, but in sound. A low, endless tone that filled every ship, every suit, every mind. And the soldiers dropped their weapons. Some screamed, some wept, some simply fell to their knees. The sound wasn't pain, it was memory. The device pulled from their minds the worst of their war, the screams, the burning skies, the faces they'd forgotten. It gave it back to them in full and broke them without a single drop of blood. The battlefield went silent once more. This time, for good. A day passed, then two. No more attacks came. And slowly, across the galaxy, the leaders of old factions began to speak again. Not to plan battle, to surrender. They signed not treaties, but silence oaths. Promises not to build war machines. Promises to send ships only for aid, for rebuilding, for healing. The Talshar and Zareth, ancient enemies, opened trade for the first time. Border guards were removed, and the stories began again. This time, not of violence but of wonder. A human, they whispered. A man who fought with no army, who broke war by refusing to swing back, and deep in the ruins where no one dared enter, the vaults closed again, locked not by tech but by peace. Because they were no longer needed, Reed didn't stay. He left quietly one night, aboard a ship no bigger than a cargo drone. Siren offered him command of fleets. The Narun offered him answers to the universe's greatest mysteries. Even Earth tried to reach him again, but he declined. He left a simple message before disappearing. "This was never my war. I just made sure it didn't become yours forever." He vanished beyond the stars where the vaults didn't hum and the skies didn't burn. Some say he still watches. Some say he found a place untouched by history. Others say he's gone. But I'll remember one thing. The day the war stopped was the day a human showed the galaxy that real power isn't found in fire, but in refusing to be burned. And in that choice, he ended a 1,000-year war and began something far greater.